Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 23. I am your host Mo, and I'm joined as always by my adventurous friends Vili
Dobra večer.
and Jody.
Get fucked, man. What?
Amazing.
That is hello in Morse code.
I don't know how you're going to top this, Jody. Just remember, this is an audio medium, and if you try and do sign language next time, it's not going to play. Excellent. What was yours, Vil?
Croatian.
Oh, Croatian. Interesting pull. Big listener base in Croatia.
Yes.
Well, then I really do hope I didn't wreck that like I did the names in the book.
Oh, boys, I hope you can keep this up for the whole run of the books. We're only halfway through book 3.
There are many languages that I can find, but not all of them can give me an audio feedback.
Very well done. Okay, so this week, man, when I was reading this episode's chapters, I had a chuckle because I named our tower time in the last episode, and just as I had come up with a name for it, everyone's just fucked off. There's no one at the tower anymore. Now it's just adventure time. So everyone's off on a big adventure. We'll delve into all that wonderful adventurous detail real soon. But before we hit the road, it is everybody's favorite section. Callbacks.
Did you get a jingle for this yet?
No, but I did leave a nice pause there for in case I find a jingle to just slot it in.
I'll record one for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
No.
Just not in Morse code, please.
Oh, dear. Well, forget it then.
Now, can you guys remember our discussion about the elfin and the eelfin and us sort of speculating about what it is that they actually feed on? Is it emotion? Is it memories? What can it be?
I recall that, yes.
Okay, good. I went and I checked. So let's do a quick little breakdown of what it is that they do. So the elfin are the ones that look like snakes. They answer 3 questions truthfully, and in exchange, they absorb some of the asker's memories. So they don't steal them because they remain where they are, but they do get access to them and record them somehow themselves.
They copy and paste memories. Gotcha.
That's it, yes. It's a Control-C, not a Control-X.
There you go.
No.
The eelfin are the fox-like ones. They grant 3 wishes, but at a price that must be set beforehand. If one is not set, then they set their own, and it usually results in a painful experience to the asker because they seem to enjoy strong negative emotion like pain or sorrow. So maybe they feed on that, but they also can access the memories of those who visit them or borrow memories gathered by the elfin. And this is actually later where Matt says he thinks he got his memories from the eelfin, from the fox-like people.
All right.
When we were talking about what do they absorb, emotion or memory, it's one for the one and the other for the other, just like we thought it might be.
All right, then.
Yeah. Then we had some discussion about the weave that Lanfear was using to disguise herself as Elsie. And I said that I think it might be called something like Mask of Mirrors. And in fact, a certain version of that weave is called the Mask of Mirrors. There's actually 2 distinct weaves. One, it was called the Mask of Mirrors in the Age of Legends, but in the current age, it's called the Mirror of Mists. The Age of Legends version, the Mask of Mirrors, is different in that it also inverts the weave and masks the glow and all that sort of stuff. So it's like a more complete illusion. It hides the channeler from other channelers, where a mist of mirrors or mirror of mists only would, fool someone that can't sense the power or see channeling and that sort of thing.
All right.
A fun fact is that Cadswain has a set of Terangriel that disrupts the Mask of Mirrors.
Of course she does.
Vili, you gave us a brief introduction into the story of Musashi that I keep saying is what that sort of quarterstaff is greater than the sword duel was leaning on, the legend of Musashi. And you quite rightly, obviously, as you read from Wikipedia, that Miyamoto Musashi was a Japanese swordsman, philosopher, strategist, and writer, and Ronin. He's most renowned for his unique double-bladed swordsmanship, and he had been undefeated in 61 duels. The next best record was 33, so he was like head and shoulders above all the other swordsmen. He fought another swordsman when Musashi was still young. I think he was still in his teens. He fought a guy by the name of Muso Gonosuke, and he beat him quite resoundingly. And Gonosuke then went on like a quest to learn as much as he could so that he could fight Musashi again and best him. And as he traveled and he learned everywhere, he had like one hectic training session after which he sort of collapsed exhausted, and he was visited by a vision that said to him, "Know the solar plexus of your opponent with a round stick." Which, okay, cool vision or whatever. But he had experience in fighting with a staff and a spear, and he actually developed a shorter staff called a jo and its relevant techniques. And it was specifically designed to be slightly longer than a katana, and but still could be used with similar moves. And it is rumored, or legend has it, that he started a school to teach all these moves with his jo sticks, and eventually he fought Musashi again. And the stories vary, but apparently either he drew with him or he beat Musashi with it. But it's only that school, let's call it the stick school, that has any record of this duel ever happening. All the other sword schools don't acknowledge its existence at all. So it's even got a bit of an asterisk next to it. But that is the fight in which Musashi lost, quote unquote, to a like a staff wielding opponent, where it was the only person that ever gave him any real kind of challenge.
All right. Just one amendment. I think you should change it from stick school to Joe school. I prefer that. And I think
Of course you would.
everyone will agree. Moving on.
Oh dear.
Stemming from that same scene, I totally set myself up for a callback with, doesn't Gawain kill Hamar? But he does.
Of course he does. No, I'm joking.
I did fuck it up. I said when the younglings escaped the tower, but they weren't escaping anywhere. It's when Hamar and a set of the warders loyal to Swan try and free her after she's been deposed. And the younglings follow, the leadership of the Aes Sedai, and they fight, and Gawain does kill Hamar.
Oh.
Yeah, poor Hamar. Then we had a bit of chatting about, like, are dreamers, are their dreams prophetic? Like, do dreamwalkers have dreams that are like prophecy? And after a bit of reading, I mean, a lot of our seasoned readers would probably pulling their hair out while listening to us talk about it and fumble our way around in the dark. But there is a distinct difference between a dreamer and a dreamwalker. Dreamers specifically have foretellings in their dreams. So their dreams are 100% prophetic. Which could be why Anaya is so invested in finding out whether Egwene is a dreamer or not, because obviously being able to tell the future is a massive, massive tool. And apparently Corinne and Nadiel was one as well. She was a dreamer. And then, interestingly, dreamwalkers, as we know, can enter other people's dreams and tell a run riad, but even non-channelers can be dreamwalkers.
All right.
I think from what I recall, aren't some of those wise ones, not channelers, but extremely powerful in the world of dreams? I don't know if it's like not channeling or if they're just weak in the power but strong in the dreams, something along those lines.
You're just setting yourself up for another callback session.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm sitting here thinking.
I'll draw a line under this one. I'm not gonna chase that one down the rabbit hole because it's gonna come up in the next book or two anyway. Ooh, then some fun facts about Calandor. We were saying that we all knew it was flawed, but we didn't really know what its flaw was. First things first, I don't know if you guys know this, but apparently it's the only known Sa'angreal for the true power.
Whoa, I did not.
No.
Hectic, hey? Like, whoa, okay. Immediately it seems way more dangerous. But then it's also got two flaws. The first is that it does not have a safety buffer to prevent the channeler using it from burning themselves out. So it's like it's got no safety, where all the other Sa'angreal have sort of a limit to the amount of power that they can channel, and even some of those I would wager are strong enough to burn out some inexperienced or weaker channelers. But
Yeah.
Kalandor doesn't have any buffer. You can draw as much power as you want through it, and it'll let you, and you will probably burn yourself out if you just keep going. But it also seems to magnify the effect of the taint, causing erratic thoughts and behavior. So the only safe way to use it for a man is linked with two women, one of which must meld the flows.
That seems like something I wouldn't advise anyone to use then. Just
Yes.
rather not.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that in Path of Daggers, when Rand uses it against the Shaunchan and he starts killing his own men, it could be as a direct result of that. We briefly also mentioned, what is it, the Sakanan, the two-pieced Sangreal that Demondred finds in Shara and, proves himself to be sort of their prophesied savior. The short story you were talking about, Joe, is called The River of Souls, and it is in the
Yes.
Unfettered anthology of short stories by different
Yes.
fantasy authors.
That's it.
Apparently, it was supposed to form part of Memory of Light, but Brandon Sanderson said, look, it's moving too much of the action away from Tom and Guidon, so they took it out, and they just published it as a standalone story. What else about Kalandor? We'd been wondering how long has it been in the stone? And apparently just before or during the breaking, when Kalandor was made, it was actually put in the stone, and the stone was created to protect it.
Oh.
So it's never left. It's just still in packaging. Never
Yes.
seal, never broken.
Yes. Still unopened, as new.
So has it been test driven yet? Or has it just
No.
been made and put away? Like we've made this crazy killing weapon, let's put it away.
Well, they would probably test it immediately after making it so that you would know things like it doesn't have a barrier for channelers, and it amplifies negative thoughts or like the taint effects and that sort of thing. But then immediately just locked away in the Stone of Tyr, and not even obviously the Forsaken have been able to get through the wards that keep it safe there. So the question of how long has it been hanging there? 3,000 years. We speculated about Lanfear and her sort of effect on Egwene and what she was doing to Loyal and Huron and Rand in the Portalstone worlds. And when I try to find any mention of her belt, there's no direct mention of it. But what I did come across was an old mythological reference for a goddess named Lesser, who is from Celtic mythology, who had long black hair, plenty of silver jewelry, and a magic belt called the Girdle of Truth, which is, I don't know, fun fact. Doesn't tell us anything, but the fact that she had a magic belt might mean that Lanfear's belt is magic. That's a bit of a stretch, but hey, that's what we do.
Only a bit.
That's what we do here, right? Stretch. Then, Jody, you asked if you channel in Tel'aran'rhiod, does your body glow in the real world? And I posed this question to Twitter, and I don't know if you noticed the ensuing debate, but there was a lot of responses from all over the place that came in, and it seems like the universal answer to that one is no, you wouldn't. The reason being there's only, or the rationale at least, not the reason, but there's only one flow that you can actually channel or hold while asleep, and that is spirit. So if you had to channel other elements in Tel'aran'rhiod, your physical body would not be channeling them. So there's a clear distinction between your channeling event in the world of dreams and channeling in the real world. So the consensus is that channeling in the world of dreams would not have a physical effect in the real world.
Okay. Question answered. But I did see the poll in Twitter, so I'll accept the consensus.
It fits nicely for me. It makes sense that if those are two different things, then the effect of one shouldn't be visible in the other.
I'll allow that.
You also asked if a wolf brother could have normal dreams, because we were talking about Perrin sort of chaining himself to the thing, to the post in that one dream, not wanting to partake in the weirdness of the wolf dream all the time. And apparently, yes, the answer is yes, that even later in the books, you find out that more experienced wolf brothers can choose to enter normal dreams or the wolf dream. So there's that answer. Simple one as well. We laughed at Nynaeve, who was sort of like seemed to be in a cheerful mood in the last stretch of chapters, and she actually smiled twice. And we said we couldn't remember a specific instance of her smiling, except maybe in Baerlon when she was dancing with Rand. And our good friend Kerry wrote in, and she said that she had just read that section in Baerlon, and she definitely smiles twice there as well. She smiles at Rand while talking to him, and then she smiles while they're dancing as well. So yes, she can smile.
She can't she? Most of us thought it was just an impossibility for her.
Well, despite her best efforts to convince us that she never smiles. Okay, so here's another one with a very short answer. How long has Rand been on the run when Egwene sees him looking haggard in Tel Aranriot? Do each of you want to take a guess?
I'll take a guess.
Go.
8 days.
I say 3 days.
The answer is 28 days.
All right, so it's a month into it.
Wow. I'm not
Yeah.
good with time, am I?
I found a really handy I think it's a blog or something where someone had gone and they had like meticulously noted every single event in the stories on a timeline to the point where Egwene appears to Rand in Tel Aranriot on this date, and they even relate it to a real world date. Like they've got actual hour months and month and day numbers in that list as well. So it's like in April sometime.
Great. Okay. Around Easter.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We also asked whose footsteps do Egwene and Sylvie hear in the Heart of the Stone while they're in the World of Dreams, and there is no definitive answer about who that was, but the fandom wiki says it's probably Belal. So in our callbacks, we'll put a pin in it, and we'll see if anything becomes more obvious towards the end of this book. So we should find out soon enough.
There's two options there. Ishamael or Belal, because we know Belal is in Tyr. But now that you've mentioned that Kalandor is an amplifier sangreal for the true power, then it could be that Ishamael is very, very interested in it. So,
yeah,
there you go.
That tracks. But then again, any one of the Forsaken would be.
Well, yeah. But him more so than others.
Yes, I mean, because of the true power, for sure. Then a little bonus fact. Jody, you're going to enjoy this one. When I was reading about Matt and his luck, I stumbled upon an error in the books. Remember when I said Matt has 4 sisters, and we went back to the text and we looked it up because you corrected me and you said he actually only has 2 sisters? Later, Matt himself refers to his 2 sisters, Eldrin and Bodwin. And on a fan page or a wiki page or something, it is actually referred to as an incongruity in the story. Like it's a noted mistake.
No, I thought you were going to tell me he has 28 sisters.
No, you're good with sisters, not good with time.
I'm good with sisters. I hope my wife's not listening to this.
That'll cost you a couple of bucks to edit out. Okay, boys, that is all the callbacks I have for this week.
Right on.
Phew.
Well, that wasn't so bad.
Okay, so let's get to the good stuff. Before we start on our first chapter for this episode, I will say that previously on Blood and Ashes, Matt agreed to take Elaine's letter to Morghese. He's now armed with a letter of authority from the Amelin, and the girls got disturbing news from Swan about Elsie being thrown out before they got the message from her, and other signs that Tyr is a trap, but they decide to go anyway. Probably more relevant to these chapters is where we left off with Matt, just getting ready to go. So our first chapter for this week is chapter 30, called The First Toss. And Villy, why don't you get us started?
All right. So Matt is sitting, relaxing after he had some more food brought to him. And over the course of the day, he's been requesting more and more food because he's squirreling them away into his bags. He's got the letter now from Nynaeve, and he's got his plan set. Nia comes and checks in with him during the course of the day. She delves him with the power, He's not very fond of it. He knows what's happening now. He's figured that out for himself. And she sort of, make notes that he's been eating quite a bit, And he's like, yeah, no, he's feeling a lot better. And he imagined tonight it would be a good thing to go out into, the town, see a couple of inns, a couple of common rooms, nothing to lift the spirit like that.
Mhm.
And she sort of gives him a wry smile, backs out, and she sees the quarterstaff still there. And she's like, you're safe here. No one's going to do anything to you. And he's like, no, sure, sure. And she clears the
Sure,
room.
sure.
He's got his stuff together. He's got his dice cup on his person with his dice. He's got the letter from Elaine for Morgase, and he's got the letter that Nynaeve gave him from Swan tucked behind his belt. Coin purse, gets his walking staff. He's got all the food that he squirreled together, all together, cheese and apples that's winter wrinkled and pears and all the good stuff. And he's
I
going
think
off.
you're adding more detail than what is actually in the story.
You're just calling back to those wrinkly apples. Those wrinkly apples come up a lot in these
Yeah.
books.
I'm right on point. But yeah, he's now making it overly obvious that he's leaving.
Yeah.
And Ania sees him again in sort of the courtyard. She just smiles, like a little bit more of a cheeky smile, and shakes her head. It's like, why are you doing this? Like, everyone knows who you are. You're not going to get out. But no, he's like, no, you play the fool, make them think. So when he's missing tonight, that's fine, no alarm. But when they can't find him later tomorrow, he'll be down the river like a dog or a rat. Yeah, so Matt has clearly got his plan, and he heads into the city walls or out of the tower grounds into the city, and decides to find himself a good inn on his way to the South Harbour. So he finds a common room, pops in there. 3 games of dice is going down, and he's like, "Light, let's do this." And from the get go, it's just winning, winning, and winning, and more winning. He doesn't stay long in one place because he's too scared to sort of get people suspicious out of this crazy luck that he's having. And as
Smart.
he goes, he picks up a little bit of, guys decided that they've taken all his money already, or their money already. He would rather just win them back by betting on Matt to win. So he's got mate with him that is already betting with him, but this doesn't stop. And Matt goes into what I can only describe as a Frankie Four Fingers gambling spree. He's just winning every toss. So eventually he's in a common room, maybe the 4th, maybe the 5th one, throwing the dice, and for so many of time he hits all kings. So in that specific game, all 5 die are up with the king's face. It's called kings. And an old mate behind him pipes up, now he's got the dark one's luck. But he didn't quite take well to that. And he jumped up, and before he knew it, the guy, which was a head taller than him, pinned up against the wall. And everyone is like, whoa, no, calm down. It's just the saying. It's just the saying. It's like, well, I'm no dark friend. And just grabs his stuff, doesn't even take the winnings from that round, and leaves. Gets a bit of fresh air outside, calms himself down, and is like, okay, well, where did that come from? That was quite extreme. And he decides then, just as he thought to move, a guy comes out of the pub, and it's big drunk guy, just cool evening, moves on. And he decides, okay, I'm going to get out of here. I've got enough coins. He worked out how much money he's got there. He's exchanged through the night silver marks for gold marks, and it's just been going. And he's got 2 purses now, odd coins in all his pockets. So Matt's got enough for a voyage, and he's like, okay, cool. Let's start making the way. And then he hears sort of slow walking, stalking behind him, and he's like, nah, there's footpads out for him. He bolts down an alley, finds himself a nice little between the buildings shady spot, and he confirms there's 2 guys, blades already drawn, like coming for him. And he gears up. Right, this is going to go down now. He's going to wait until they're close, and they then sort of call out, like, have you seen him? It's like, no, shadows are scaring them as well. So they decide to turn around and head back. And it's like he's got the luck that night, even there.
Yeah, there's one from either end of the alley comes down and they meet in the middle and they both say
Mm.
they haven't seen him. Where the fuck did he
Yep.
go? But they don't look around. They just turn around and leave again. So that's where Matt says that's his luck is translating to more than just dice.
I've got it. It's typical two bad guys in a two bad guy movie alley scene. Like look around, there's not much. Oh no, and moves off.
I don't see him. Let's go look somewhere else.
Matt then climbs up onto a first level roof, and he uses the roofs as sort of a bit of a stair leveling, jumping up until eventually he's on like a third level, and he now uses the roof as a way down, up into a point where he's got to cross a bridge. So he gets down from the roofs onto the roadway, and as he's crossing the bridge, he runs into another thief that's got his knife drawn and immediately goes for Matt's throat and instinctively grabs the arm and sort of catches away. And there's a second long scuffle, and Matt just says, "Time to toss the dice," as he's on the railing of the bridge. And he heaves them all over the edge of the bridge, falling 30 feet. And falls his ass off at the bottom, but he falls on top of the footpad. And he realized that as he looks down at the corpse, that there's a knife stuck all the way down to the hilt into his heart. And it's just like, well, what bloody blind luck he's having this day, but there's the guy dead. He picks up his quarterstaff and it's like, well, he doesn't want to get caught by the tower guards next to a guy with a knife in his heart. He's got to get out of there real quick. And yeah, he then sees there's a inn. He decides, oh, he's also weak, legs all of a sudden weak, and realizes he's got none of his food left. He's already had all the breads and all the apples and all the cheese and all the fruit and everything he stashed is already gone. It's been a couple of hours. Nia sees an inn called the Woman of Tanchico, and he heads in there just to get a last something to eat before it's go time.
Yeah. Yo, Matt. So lucky. Hey, just it falls on the dude stabs himself in the heart.
Was that dude a grey man?
I thought so.
No.
There was something, I can't remember the exact text. Morris has got it.
When he gets up, he says he doesn't think he would have spotted the man in a crowded room.
No, it says that, but I don't see him as a grey man.
That's what the grey man wants you to not see.
So is it? Not just the
You fell for it, Billy.
Well, I mean, we'll get to it in the next chapter, but Tom tells him there are no footbands in Tar Valon. There's no, because the city guard and the Aes Sedai, it doesn't exist there. And if it does, it's very, very rare. And I mean, he has an orchestrated attack, right? So the fact that the throwaway line of "I would not have recognized him," or he wouldn't have recognized him in a crowded room, is that sort of that catchphrase that they use to identify grey men all the time.
I toyed with the idea, but then in the end, I was like, he was just a common guy, common thief.
Well, judging from what happens in the coming chapters, it's not
Yeah.
just common thieves, right? I mean, these guys are sent.
And you get a definitive answer to that in chapter 36, which we'll have to wait and see. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Poor Matt's got grey man after him. He hasn't even left the tower yet.
Yeah. I mean, the grey men are in the tower. So, you know, the fact that he got as far as he did without the grey man crossing paths with him is actually pretty lucky. Jody, did you have anything you want to lob in there?
No, I just wanted to lob in the whole grey man thing. Yeah, I suppose like this is a spoiler cast. So in chapter 36, you find out that that the dark friends that are put there by Ishamael are supposed to stop him from leaving the city.
Yes,
and that's what those footpads, so to speak, were supposed to do. But obviously, no one's going to stop Matt. It's not going to happen. Doesn't matter what you do.
No, not with that luck at the moment.
No.
Also, Billy, you touched on this, but Anaya knows exactly what Matt is up to. Like when she's talking to him at first, and like she even says, like, you know, you don't have to worry about food. We've got plenty of food. You're not going to run out. We're not going to forget to to give you a meal or anything like that, because she's caught onto the fact that he is obviously stashing food away, and she thinks it's because, like, he's trying to make sure that he has food. And then later, when she sees him also, like, just walking down the hallway, and she gives him a rueful shake of the head and with a smile on her face.
It's like, no, he's trying now to go.
He's clearly packed for a journey.
He's got
Not
all his
fooling
stuff
anyone.
with him. Yeah.
Blanket rolls, backpacks.
Oh, well, that was the intent. He's
Yeah.
going to be looking like as obvious as he can make out. Everyone's going to be like, oh, look at that fool go. Look at him
Exactly,
go.
yeah. I mean, you touched on that as well. He says, if you can't hide what you're doing, do it openly so you look like a fool. The Aes Sedai will expect him to be just like dragged back to the tower by sunrise or something like that. So he's doing it like almost openly so that the Aes Sedai don't feel like they need to watch him, because, like, look at this idiot and how obvious he's making it. The city guards will take care of this. But little do they know, he's got the special letter.
Mm. He's already halfway down the river, He's gone.
Yes. He muses to himself that he's always been somewhat lucky. What's changed?
Well, he speculates. There's just speculation at this point in time.
And it's a topic of debate that I've seen online a lot. Like, a lot of people have theories about what's happening here. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think.
I haven't considered it. Maybe he's just like coming into his luck, like Rand is learning to channel and Perrin is learning his wolfiness and he's learning his luck. I don't know. I've never really thought about it.
But what is his luck?
He's got the Dark One's luck.
Yeah.
Well, he muses to himself that this luck thing sort of started after he got the dagger from Shadar Logoth. That's what he's thinking to himself. So a lot of people that I've, read comments from online seem to think that his luck is somehow tied to that. But I can't see that happening. I don't know why the dagger itself, or anything from Aridhol or More Death or Mashadar, and none of that is even tangentially related to luck. To me, it feels a lot more like a Taverin thing, but specific to him. Like, this is a Taverin trait that seems to be working for him and manifesting in this specific way. And while I was reading about this, I learned this shocking fact. Prepare to be shocked, or as my track record would show, not be shocked. But I'm going to try and shock you now. Nobody is born a Taverin. You become a Taverin over the course of your life.
So you can become more Taverin over time.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he just amplified his Taverinness when they rid him of the dagger, the Dark One's tanked with the dragon.
With
the
the dagger. Yes. So, like, maybe this massive event sort of triggered a progression of his Taverin nature in a certain direction. It's also, it's noteworthy that the Heroes of the Horn refer to him as the Gambler, that Aemon was known as a gambler, the king of Manetherin. So it's, some people also think that it is this very specific persona that is spun out by the pattern at different times over the ages, that there is always, or not always, but at times there is a quote unquote the gambler. And that's what Arthur Hawkwing and those guys see in him. And that, that's related to the pattern, Taverinness. So that sort of sits in line with what my thinking is. Some people think it's got something to do with that lucky Terangriel that was stolen, because out of all those Terangriel that the Black Archer take, that one sort of stands apart from the others completely, and it's also at a time exactly when this is starting to happen for Matt. And people have then drawn a line from that to the channeling that Lanfear does in his room when she comes to him. Like when she starts channeling at him and he starts getting a headache. People are, bringing in that Terangriel and Lanfear's channeling. So, this theory would necessitate either Lanfear stealing the Terangriel herself and the tower thinking that the Black Archer also took that one, or that Lanfear took it from the Black Archer, or that the Black Archer was working with Lanfear and handed it over to her, and that she somehow used this Terangriel with Matt in the room when she channeled at him to do something to him permanently. But that's not how that terangrial works.
Yeah, that
Um,
sounds a little bit conspiracy theory.
it is so convoluted and contrived. You are connecting so many different things with dotted lines that it just falls apart to me.
Mm.
Yeah, the simplest thing usually is the right thing. His Taviran nature is increasing as he is exposed to more channeling and things.
That's my feeling, Will. That's sort of where I've landed. But it's interesting that there's no like definitive answer for it. Like nobody knows.
It's designed with intent. Look at how we're talking about it. It's meant to keep people asking questions over time.
Yeah, well, thanks, RJ. Matt, sorry, my last Matt comment before we can move on is at one point he starts humming or whistling the tune "We're Over the Border Again," and I don't know if I've ever heard anyone in the story mention that song. So I was wondering if maybe that's something from one of his soldier memories that's coming through.
Oh, possibly.
I mean, that sounds like a soldier type song, right? Like "Over the Border
Mm.
Again." Anyway, that's just me trying to add additional canon.
But man, he's just on the move, isn't he? There's
Yeah.
nothing holding him back now.
No, he's matting it up all over the place. Okay, then. So let's move on to the next chapter, chapter 31, called The Woman of Tanchico, which now, after having heard the previous chapter or read the previous chapter, I know is a pub and not an actual woman.
Yeah.
Side note, before I was doing the chapters, I read the chapter titles for this stretch. And I was like, who's this woman from Tanchico? What is the significance? Why does she have a whole chapter named after her? And then when I read it, I was like, oh, you fucking idiot. So so Matt enters the common room, obviously out from the street after having just murdered someone with his luck. And it's brightly lit with lots of people sort of bustling about. There's the sound of a harp over it all. The people seem reasonably well off, but not like fully embroidered like the very well to do. So he figures it's, lots of merchants, not the sort of upper class, but middle class merchants. But what I also noticed right at the start of this chapter is that the chapter icon is a harp. And in my notes here, I say, my heart skipped a beat. Uh, and then when he walks in and he hears the harp music, I'm like, oh, yes, here we go. Come on. And then sure enough, the man playing the harp is standing on a table, and Matt recognizes him as the man that once saved his life, Tom fucking Marilyn. There he is in the flesh.
That's what he's going by nowadays. Tom fucking Marilyn.
Yes. So Matt notices that he seems to be moving with a limp as he's moving around on the table. But Matt orders 2 drinks and sits down. And the barmaid susses him out, and she says that you don't look like a hard drinking type, like why 2 drinks? And he just says, don't worry, one is for my friend. So he gives her 2 silver pennies, one for the drinks and another one, quote unquote, for her eyes, and says, she shouldn't worry. The second one is for his friend that'll be joining him soon. So when Tom finishes up, he seems to be somewhat intoxicated as he's trying to climb down from the table. He's sort of like stumbling in a way that Matt thinks is unlike him and obviously not attributable to his limp necessarily. And as he comes up to Matt, he's just grumbling about his audience. It's not like, hey, Matt, how you doing or anything. He's just bitching about how, like, his audience is an uncultured lot listening to this story in common tongue and not even,
Common
chant or high
chant.
chant. Yeah. Typical Tom. Matt even thinks, yep, that's Tom Marilyn, all right. Matt then also notices that he doesn't immediately put his harp away, which is not something that Tom would usually do. He looks after that thing like it's his baby. All of it just sort of leading up to the fact that Tom is a little bit out of sorts. He's not his normal self here. So when the serving girl comes back with the 2 drinks that Matt ordered, she immediately regrets bringing the second one when she sees that the friend Matt bought it for is Tom. And soon after she's come back with the drinks, another woman arrives who sort of looks quite a bit like her, ostensibly the barmaid's sister. And they both sort of fuss over Tom, saying that, he's had enough. And they try to actually take him to bed before Matt says, "Don't worry, I'll look after him." They they don't look too convinced, but Matt says, "Just bring me 3 or 4 chickens. I'm quite hungry." So Billy's mentioned, like, he's eaten all this food that he had squirreled away with him in a couple of hours, and he's still ordering 3 or 4 whole chickens. And the serving girls sort of say, "Okay, cool. Well, he can stay with you, but Tom, then you should also just eat something, like stop drinking and eat something. They give Matt a wary look as they leave, and Matt sort of has an indignant thought about that. But that's immediately followed by, but they do have pretty eyes on the pair of them. Just constantly, like his testosterone must be flowing after his healing, because he is constantly remarking from this point out on the quality of the serving girl's eyes and trying to get their attention. But as the serving girls leave, Matt tells Tom that Rand had said that Tom was alive, and that Moraine had always said that she thought Tom was alive as well, and he's glad to see that it's true. So Tom is somewhat surprised that Rand is still well, but also says, Moraine is still with him, is she? A fine-looking woman. A fine woman, if she were not Aes Sedai, which obviously takes on a whole new meaning now that we know what we know. Matt and Tom dance around why Tom would think Rand is not well, but Matt changes the topic by asking Tom why he's in Tar Valon, considering his stance on Aes Sedai and how much he knows Tom is, averse to them. Or Matt asks him, why he left Kyrian, because from what Rand had told him, Tom was making quite a bit of money in Kyrian. But Tom then mutters at the mention of Kyrian, he says the following: such trouble it causes killing a man, even when he deserves killing. Kill a man who needs killing, and sometimes others pay for it. And he starts flourishing a knife. I mean, he killed G-Man, right? This is it.
Totally.
This is the
Yeah,
life.
that's what I was when I was reading that. I'm like, he's not talking about just the guy that came through the door.
No.
It's
Specifically, the line about kill a man who needs killing and sometimes others pay for it. I think he is referring to the fact that then others died in whatever civil unrest was caused by the death of the king. But I am now more convinced than ever that Tom did kill Galdrian.
Yeah.
Which just makes Tom even more of a badass.
king killer, kingslayer.
Bedding queens, killing kings. I mean, he moves in high circles.
As long as he doesn't bet his sister, that's all good.
Jodie's the one that's good with sisters. Matt tells him to pipe down about killing and put the knife away. Like, that's not the kind of attention that he wants to draw to them. But Tom elaborates and says that he's finally answering Matt's question, saying he's in Tar Valon because it's the worst place he could be in, and you can tell that he's sort of punishing himself for Denna's death. Matt tells Tom that he's never known him to feel so sorry for himself, and Tom arcs up and tells Matt he doesn't know anything about life. Then turns the question back on Matt, saying, why are you in Tar Valon? I remember you like wanting to, soil yourself every time someone spoke about channeling around you. So Matt sets him straight and says that he's leaving. He's going to Camelin, and he invites Tom to join him. Tom muses about how the danger of being caught in Camelin actually kind of suits his mood. Like, he's on this self-destructive path, right? And Camelin, every man and his dog is looking for Tom, and not in a good way. So he says it suits his mood to be in Camelin, and just says on the spot, fine, he'll come with him. But as he's talking to him, he looks down and he sees that Matt has finished all the chickens that had, in the meantime, been delivered to the table. And he asks him, what have you been doing with the chicken? Are you stuffing it up your sleeves? Matt's like, but no, come on. I get hungry, Matt's line, I think, is, sometimes I get hungry.
And then I eat 4 chickens.
So when Tom has agreed to go with Matt, he says, okay, look, I'm just going to go get my things. But he says to Matt, try not to eat the table. And he goes, and he comes back with his stuff. And the 2 barmaids come back and they sort of escort them to the door. And Tom is kissing both of them goodbye. I don't know how much passion I should be reading into these kisses, but it's not described as a peck on the cheek either. And Matt is sort of taken aback by the kissing that's going on. So I don't know if Tom is just like laying into these barmaids.
He is,
but I wouldn't put it past him. And Matt's sort of surprised by this, and the one barmaid, she sort of comes up to Matt and she gives him a Tar Valon silver mark in his hand, and he's surprised by this, and she just says to him, look, I'm sorry about the comments I made before, but it seems like you've had an effect on Tom. I've never seen him look this alive, or I haven't seen him look this alive in some time, in weeks, I think she says. So she leaves with sort of like a flirtatious line about Matt having pretty eyes as well, and she laughs at the expression on Matt's face and walks off as Matt steps out into the street after Tom. But Matt quickly realizes as he looks around that the body from the fight that Philly just described is not around, and the city watch certainly has not found it, because they would have made a racket and they would have come around looking for whoever created this body. He says to Tom, when Tom asks him, what are you looking at? He says, I'm looking for footpads. And that's when Tom explains to him, there's no such thing here, dude. You're jumping at shadows. Don't worry about footpads here. And that just, makes Matt even more worried. So he just says, we're going to be on the first ship sailing, Tom, whatever it is, the first. And Tom tells him to slow down as he's charging down the road, that there are plenty of ships, and Matt says to him, the first bloody ship, Tom, if it's sinking, we'll be on it. And as he's like stomping off, he's wondering who it could have been that attacked him if it wasn't footpads, because he also was under the assumption that it was just sort of, thieves in the night. But I'm still holding on to that idea that it was a grey man. And as we know, it was at the very least assassins sent with a very specific cause. And that's the end of the chapter.
Isn't there, when he orders the chickens and the woman looks at him, doesn't he say, "Oh, Tom, did you want something?" I don't know if this is just me in my brain. Maybe
I also thought that and went back and checked, but it's actually the maids asked Tom, "Do you also want something?"
You wanted
that's like
wine.
that's a golden opportunity for that line, Joe, to also say, I'll have 4 chickens. Tom, anything for you?
Yeah. But no. Oh, damn.
No, not this time. Anything you guys want to add in there?
Yeah, I think that you pretty much covered it all, because it was the thing about Geldrin, like, he definitely,
that was
like,
the big
that's
one.
confirmation to me that he killed him, that it was him.
Yeah. I mean,
and then caused some serious shit. Chapter 37, I just picked up the Kindle now, is Fires in Kyrian. So,
ooh,
yes.
maybe we get some more insights there.
Yeah. Things are not going well.
The grain, the precious granaries.
Yes, the granaries.
Okay, well, yeah, for me also Galdrian, that was the big note. So we can move on. Did you have anything else, Vil?
No, pretty much. These chapters seem that there's a lot in it, but it's really just small moves that's happening.
The periods of time in which they play out are very short. So it's just like these little snatches. So let's move on then to chapter 32, called The First Ship. And Jody, that's yours.
It is indeed. And Matt was not kidding about the first ship. So Matt and Tom head for South Harbor. Despite the late hour, the docks are bustling. This is a major port, so it's 24 hours, 7 days a week. They're busy unloading and loading ships, doesn't matter what time of day. Matt literally sees the first ship and he's like, that's the one. And it's casting off. Like, it's literally leaving at this very second. Ropes have already been removed from, I don't know, the wharf. But before they get to it, they're intercepted by the harbor master, who, of course, knows who Matt is instantaneously from the description he was given. And he's like, you ain't going nowhere. But Matt shows him the Amerlin's letter. And the dockmaster is, of course, very confused. But he's not going to argue with the Amerlin while working for her in South Harbor. So he's like, gives it a double take. He's like, well, whatever. Just, you've got this letter. You go. I'm not gonna give you any shit about it. But you're never gonna make that ship. It's already going down the river. Before he's even finished speaking, Matt's already taken off, throws his quarterstaff ahead of him onto the deck of the ship, and leaps onto the deck himself. Just like, I was supposed to, he just thought, did he forget about Tom? Or he was just figured Tom could take care of himself. But anyway, he has like a oof, and there's Tom is also on the ship. Tom just made it. I think he hangs onto the railing, and then pulls himself on board.
Tom loses his walking staff.
Yeah,
He lost his walking stick.
Right. So yeah, he just made it. Like, thanks. Well, technically Matt did give him a heads up. He told him first ship and that one, pointed at it. But anyway, they're on the ship. It's all cool. Of course, it's not all cool. The captain, Huan Malia, a Tarian, is, of course, stunned. Like, who the fuck are you? You can't just come and jump on my ship in the middle of the night. But Matt's like, no, takes out the letter, shows him the letter, starts flashing some gold coins around, and there's some negotiation before the 2 bouncers that the captain calls over to throw them overboard. Matt's already like, no, let's make a deal. So long story short, Matt ends up with the captain's cabin and all of his meals because he's loaded. I mean, he's got gold coins coming out of his ass. The captain's like, yeah, if you gave me 5 gold coins, I'd let you have my cabin.
like
if you gave me
laughing,
10,
like, oh,
laughing, like, if you gave me 10 gold coins, I'd let you have my cabin and my food. So it's like, okay, cool, yes, 10 gold coins.
yeah, Andorran weight.
But, yeah, Andorran weights, and 2 of them are actually Andorran coins. And then he gives him another 2 gold coins. It's like, yeah, if the people that you kick out of their rooms to take, for you to have a room, let them have some of the gold as well. But of course, the captain is a semi-good guy. We learn a little bit about him during this chapter. He's not a great guy, but no, not at all. But he's not going to kick out his people, like his guests. So anyway, gold changes hands. They've got themselves a place. And the captain's like, he asks Matt as well, are you a lord in disguise? But Matt's like, no, none of that here. So
I'm no bloody lord.
I'm no bloody lord. But yeah, there's a lot of that going around. Everybody thinks Rand is a lord in disguise. Now it's Matt a lord in disguise. But anyway, so with that letter that he's got and all that money that he's got, like, he's connected. So on the way to the cabin, we learn a few things about old Huan. For one, he hates every other country in the world except his own. Tyr is number 1. I've got here my notes. America, fuck yeah. It's like Tyr is fuck yeah. Tyr is number 1, man. Especially Ilian. He hates Ilian the most, and he also likes to talk. But Matt's got this thing now where he's like listening. He's maturing, and it's a good idea to just listen to some people sometimes, get to know them a little bit, because you never know what's going to happen, who this guy is. He might try and stab you in the back in 5 minutes. So
yeah, Matt says it was always best to know not only where you were going, but who you were dealing with. Like, it's a very specific ploy. He is specifically trying to learn as much about this guy as possible, which is great. I think he learns it from his dad or something.
Also, like, he lets this guy talk. He notices this guy likes to talk, so let's let him and try and find out some more info. This Huan also is a very huge fan of the Tarian system of government. So we learn about how the High Lords rule together. They've got no kings and queens, but they rule together under a High Lord. Have I got that right?
I think it's the High Lords are the sort of like council. That
yes,
there is no one person, except there's this one very outspoken High Lord that I'm sure you're going to dive into right now.
I shall dive into it. But he's new. His name is Samon. I want to pronounce it. I want to pronounce it salmon, but that's not good. That's going to be confusing and hilarious. So we got trout, we got salmon, salmon. So anyway, he seems to love this High Lord, Samon. And Samon says that Aes Sedai want to rule the world. Samon says they want to crush every nation. They want to, and Tyr will have its rightful day of glory, blah, blah, blah. So apparently he's a very, a good speaker. He makes people listen to every word he says. So he's got everybody riled up in Tyr. This is later mentioned by Tom, is that Tom says that he knows all the nobles in the land. He knows the names of all the kings and the queens and the high lords, and he's never heard of this Samon person, which we later find out is Belal himself in disguise, has taken on that, who's in the stone, staring at swords. So anyway, they're back in the cabin now. There's only one bed, so they're going to have to share. Him and old Tom. On impulse, Matt takes out his dice cups and he gives them a few tosses, and they all come up pips this time. The Dark One's eyes. 1, 1, 1. And he throws it again, and the same thing again. So this is a little foreshadowing, I think, that his luck is running out, or that his luck is trying to show him that shit is about to hit the fan. If it's the Dark One's eyes. I don't know. Yeah, you think? Like, here comes trouble.
So.
Yeah. All right. Cool. That's what I thought as well. It was one of the two, but I was leaning towards the latter. So Tom actually mentions this, like, dude, I could see why you're on the run if you were throwing those dice in those pubs. And he's like, no, I was using other people's dice. He was like, oh, all right. So he didn't even use his own dice.
No.
He probably would have been dead long ago. Luck or no luck.
Yeah, 100%.
So Matt and Tom decide they're going to bed down for the night. They have to share the bed, of course. But Tom is out cold, in snoring, in seconds. He's just wasted. off his face.
Up all night, talking stories in common tongue.
He's just shit-faced completely. So he's passed out. Matt's still lying there, and he starts to realize that he's been played so badly by Nynaeve and Elaine and Egwene, thinking, shit, if they really had, like, if everything was above board and they wanted to get a letter to her mother, the Amryn would have organized it somehow, sent a warder, something, and he's realized he wanted to get out of the city so badly, he never even questioned it. I mean, he questioned it a little, but he was like, fuck it, whatever. I'll take your letter and I'll go. So, yeah, it hasn't worked out well for him, and shit's about to get worse. Yeah. So just then, he hears a bump in the night upstairs, and then he hears footsteps. A boot falls, should I say, and he thinks to himself, wait a minute, the crew don't wear shoes. And it's the middle of the night, and he hears boots thumping around. Then he hears footsteps outside of his door. After the night that he's had, he is quite suspicious of yay footsteps.
He's super sharp.
Yeah. Luckily, he's still
to
awake.
make the connection. Yeah, the sailors are barefoot. I'm hearing boots. Something's up.
Yeah. Something's up.
Got all that good memories.
He's not taking any chances. So he gets up out of bed, grabs his quarterstaff, and he goes and stands by the door and waits in the dark. He tries to wake Tom as well. He's like elbows him in the ribs, like, Tom, someone's outside, get up. But Tom's, he's wasted. He's out tonight. He's a goner. Two men sneak in with knives bared, and Matt kills them both instantaneously. We were talking about that fight that he had with the warders was 12 strikes. In this one, it's 2 strikes.
2.
One in the sternum crushes the guy's heart, and the other one is crushing the throat. Like, bum, bum. And he thinks to himself as well, like his dad taught him those crushing blows. Like, this is a killing blow.
Never
only
use this if you mean it.
Exactly. And well, those knives, they mean it. This is time for those moves.
Yeah.
Before he can, and then he even thinks to himself that before this day, he had never even hurt another person, and now he's killed 3 people. That so-called footpad and these 2 guys, like within hours of each other. So it's like kind of
And
how
counting.
badass he is. Yeah, and counting. He's only just begun. It's kind of cool how badass he is, and he knows all these moves and he can handle himself. But he's still like a farm boy. That we've got to remember that just a few months ago, this would never have even occurred to him.
Yeah, he was still catching badgers.
Yeah.
Imagine if he got all these extra stuff just staying at Emansfield. Like,
just started
how
killing random
badass
human
badger
fillers.
catcher would he have become? Like, all his memories, like, just Matt's getting really successful at fucking around.
Badgers go extinct around Emansfield. So, So before he can actually think anymore, before he befuddles his brain, he puts on one of the dead men's cloaks and he heads up to the deck because he hears more people and there's more assassins up there. And he is in disguise, but it doesn't work very well or last very long. There's one of the guys on the tiller. It doesn't buy Matt's disguise at all, but he gets a quarterstaff to the head. I assume he's dead as well. I think that's 4 men now that he's killed in one night.
Cracked the skull there one time.
Yeah. Well, look, he cracked Gawain's skull, and he survived, albeit with Aes Sedai help, but I don't think he was going to die. Well, you never know.
Well, you don't know.
You don't know. Luckily, those Aes Sedai were there. But anyway, this guy that gets his skull cracked falls over, knocking the tiller, and the boat lurches, and it puts Matt's off balance, just as another man attacks, and Matt thinks to himself, there's no way I'm going to get my quarterstaff around off balance to defend myself against this dude with a knife. So he's like, I'm going to die now. But just then, a blade flashes through the air and buries itself into the assassin's chest. Good old Tom has woken up from his drunken stupor, and you see him on the other end there. Got another knife with the same hilt in his other hand. And Tom saves the day. Thank God he woke up. So he wasn't that wasted after all. They find they have a look around. There's no more assassins on board, but they see a rope tied to a little boat that's following them in the darkness. And I love little Tom's little line there because they before that though one of the 2 men on the ship says, "The great Lord, take me! It's him." They see him. So obviously there's our confirmation that we've got dealing with some dark friends. So Tom says loudly, "You want to kill these 2 as well?" Matt's like, No. I think that's enough killing for tonight. But these two O's shit themselves. They just jump over the board immediately, presumably to their deaths. Because Tom's
That's
also
what Tom
like,
says.
yeah, Tom's like, fools. It's the middle of the night. It's like half a mile to shore from where we are right now. These guys are not going to make it. They're going to die.
No.
So we've got 4 men dead, another 2 who are drowning in the river. So yeah, Matt's just had enough of killing. Just then the captain comes on deck and he's like, what the fuck is going on? Who the fuck are all these dead people? Tom manages to convince them, being the bard that he is, that these are brigands and that Matt and he are heroes for saving the ship. We've saved your ship from these. So he's a captain of industry. Back in the cabin, Matt collapses to his knees. This is what I was alluding to earlier. Just as the gravity of these situations and all of his actions sets in. Because he basically just shuts down. His body shuts down from all the stress. That he's just had to murder all of these people. He's never done anything like this in his life. So this is overwhelming to him. Like Rand as well. Rand's whole situation is probably the most overwhelming. Like, you are the Dragon Reborn. Yeah, that's a lot of shit to deal with. Perrin's having to deal with his wolfishness, which I don't get. I think it's the coolest thing in the world. I'd love to have that power. And Matt's just killing people without even trying. I mean, he literally just needs to hit you once with a stick and you're dead. We leave Matt there on his knees, collapsed in the middle of the room as the emotions overtake him. And we jump to another emotionally stunted youth called Rand.
Young man.
These guys are going through some shit, man. He's sitting by a campfire, cooking a rabbit, playing Rose of the Morning on his flute. I thought it meant interesting to mention the name of the song. Don't know why. Are you guys familiar with Rose of the Morning?
Oh, yeah. It's
I went
top of the pop charts.
I went back and I checked, Joe, to see if it's mentioned anywhere else, and it isn't. I thought that maybe there was like a tie to Manetherin, but Alessandre was the Rose of the Sun.
Something about roses. Anyway, Rose of the Morning, Rose of the Sun. Yeah, no, different names in different parts of the world. Maybe it's the same song. But anyway, he's pondering. Basically, it's just a whole lot of internal monologue. He's pondering everything that's happened to him, the dreams he's been having, the shadow spawn in his dreams, the shadow spawn chasing after him, the strange things that's happened in the villages that he's visited, those weddings and that happened spontaneously all in one day. His duty as the Dragon Reborn, all of these things. There's a whole bunch of it. He realizes, of course, that Min has a calming effect on him. He makes special mention of this. Min is like a Tangriel to him, basically. Being around her, he says, it's like having balm soothed into his wounds. His head is pounding, his head is hurting, his side is hurting, there's sweat pouring off his face while he's playing. He's afraid to sleep, he's afraid to dream, but the one thing that sticks out to him is Min. And of course, he doesn't know it all, but she's completely smitten with him. And later on in the books, as we know, they are inseparable. And probably a huge part of him not going completely insane is Min, because she really does take care of him. She does a whole lot for him.
Something I've not thought about before now is that Rand at this point has also not had anyone teach him how to channel. So he would very much be suffering that channeling sickness that, Moraine was explaining to Nynaeve would eventually kill him, and that we see glimpses of in, Egwene's accepted test and stuff. So like these splitting headaches, when you just said headache there, it sort of triggered that memory. Like no one's teaching him how to do this. So he is suffering from channeling sickness.
Yeah, I suppose he is, because there is talk of him shooting fireballs from his hands later and bars of white light. So he's bale firing and fireballing and lightning striking. I mean, he's using some
summoning
hectic
swords.
Weaves. Yeah, geez, like summoning flaming swords. And yeah. It was also a mention again that Selene had visited him again and told him about Calandor. And that's, his mission now. He is heading to Tyr to go get him a sword. And that's where we leave him.
She's fucking incessant.
Yeah. She's a bit much, isn't she? So
she's full on.
So yeah, that's where we leave him, sweating his butt off there, hurting all over the place, side paining, head paining, emotions paining.
I assume he's sweating so profusely because of the taint of the wound. in his side.
Yeah, I think the whole channel sickness that Moritz is mentioning as well.
Yeah, which could manifest as like fevers and stuff as well. So I
Mm.
mean, if he's feverish, he'd be sweating. Like he's he's generally just looking rough.
Yeah,
It's replaced
Yes.
Matt's role in the previous book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose
Pretty much.
he's not just that sickness as well. He's exhausted. He can't sleep because every time he sleeps, he gets attacked in his dreams by people he loves. So
Yeah, poor bastard.
But he also had mentioned that the Queen came and visited him in one.
yes,
That mentioned that that she was there and like why her, but that's obviously her after her little test into the
Yeah.
world of dreams.
Yeah.
That's stuck
Yeah.
with both of them because when we get to Perrin now, it's the same thing. He remembers that as well.
yeah. But I mean, Rand just can't be sure. He knows he's going to go mad, and he knows that most of the visions he sees in his dreams are fake. They're not really the people. So he doesn't know. He can't trust that it's really Egwene.
You can't make any mistakes.
No.
I don't know about you guys, but I, for the first time ever, had really tried to picture the harbor in Tar Valon. And especially because it was at night. So as you saw from the map, it's like a big C shape, right? With like the open end on the sort of the open riverside, and then these two long wharves arcing around to the big gate entrance into and out of the harbor. And especially at night, it would have looked really cool with like all the lights all along it. And the only thing that you have to indicate where the gate out to the harbor is the absence of lights. So I was trying really hard to like picture it, because I know that I had trouble picturing the harbor later in the story when Egwene goes into sort of to turn the chain into Quaindiar. I wanted to make sure that I had a clearer picture of it this time when they described it, so that when I get to that section, I have a better idea of what's going on. And when you think of the harbor as having only that small, relatively speaking, small entry and exit point into the bigger harbor proper, you can see how a chain across it would completely render the harbor unusable.
Yeah, there was a drawing of it as well in one of the maps.
Yes.
That sort of shows it.
Yes.
Makes a lot more sense.
Yes, but I just really paid more attention to it this time, and sort of lived myself into that scene down on the busy harbor dockside at night thing is such a cool sort of. It's not a scene you read about often. It was just fun to read about like what it would be like on the nighttime docks in Tar Valon, like one of the biggest cities in the world.
Yeah, no, I also took more note of it this time. There was a more description of it, obviously, in this chapter. And like they say, looking at all the little lights floating over the water from all the ships, and I have a very clear image in my mind of what the harbor looks like now.
Same. I like that the two big guys on the ship, Matt notes they both have arms like Perrin's. Also beefy boys.
Beefy boys.
Anything else from you guys? I've got one more comment about High Lord Saemon.
No, I've got nothing really. It's, again, like I say, these chapters have got some excitement, but not too much to break down.
It's true. The thing about High Lord Saemon that I wanted to call out is that the captain at one point says he speaks so that he carries a man beyond his own beliefs. Which, maybe this is me just trying to find a parallel, but the fact that he's such a good speaker, he's just come out of nowhere and he's like swept people up in this like hardcore anti-Aes Sedai, rhetoric, and people like the way the captain speaks about him is, it's almost bordering on fanaticism and stuff as well. It conjured images for me of Hitler, like being a brilliant orator, being able to stand in front of massive crowds and like sweep them up and get them to do stuff that they ordinarily wouldn't, like completely ostracizing a whole, people. Is what that comment, he speaks so that he carries a man beyond his own beliefs, made me think of.
It made me think of that too, and I didn't want to mention Hitler's name on our podcast, so I didn't. But there it is. It's here now.
I think it's safe to draw a parallel between the Forsaken and Hitler.
Okay, that does make sense. I don't know. Lots of people are very sensitive about that man. So
I think we've reached global consensus that Hitler equals bad.
Hitler equals Forsaken.
Yes. Maybe he was Belal.
Yeah, there you go. But he was shit with a sword.
I'm not chiming in anything.
All right, Vil. Well, if you don't want to talk about this, then why don't you talk about chapter 33, which is called Within the Weave?
That I definitely will. And we are back with Beefy Boy. Beefy Boy's on his horse with Stepper, and they step along on the trail of Rand. So, for those who need remembering, we've got Perrin, Moraine, Lan, and Loyal tracking Rand, and they are heading down towards the river that I'm going to try and pronounce Merethirinderel.
That's it. Perfect.
Manetherindrel?
That one, yes.
Menedrel. That's the one.
Yeah, so while they're approaching the river, Perrin is sort of lagging behind Moraine, and he's down the Luggard Road, and he spots paw prints on the stones. And he's like, this doesn't make sense. Like, there's no other paw prints on anything else, and it must be a hound's paw print. At the same time, he's also smelling a bit of a sulfur smell that's hanging around. So definitely, Jody, those
I
Labradors.
was waiting for it. Yes. Dog hounds. I get it.
Probably just a big dog, eh, Joe?
Yeah. Just a really heavy dog. The stone was soft. There you go.
I can miss, there was such a big description about the Dinkus dogs all the way back then out of the world that maybe you just thought that, like, every now and then there's random mastiffs that hang around in the bushes trying to kill men.
Stepping on stones, leaving footprints. Yes, obviously.
So yes, he picks up on that, and he's like, man, but horses can't fly and dogs can't leave paw prints on stones. Like, this just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, he catches up to Moraine, and Royal is now at this point, the pace that they're setting is he's given up trying to read in the saddle. He just finds himself a mile behind and having to like really chase to get up to them again. So they're setting a frantic pace, and Lan is, of course, scouting and getting back and forward and going back and forward between the lot, doing his normal old scouting routes. Yeah, and then they've been going through different towns, and the effects of Rand's Taveran nature on all of these towns, and potentially by Perrin following and bringing some more Taveranness with him, has been varied. Some of them wells have dried up, and in other ones, fountains that stopped flowing.
Okay.
Fountains that stopped flowing started flowing after years. In one particular village, Willa, that's where the fountain started flowing again, and File is where the crops failed. But the mayor dug a new lavatory in the backyard, and upon digging the foundations or the pit for this his outhouse, he found a rotting sack full of old Manetheran gold marks.
I would like to take a shout out here to this one honest politician that only really occurs in a fantasy novel. He found like $1 million and shared it with his people. Nice.
That's how you know it's fantasy.
Yeah, totally.
But yes, Lan is on the move. Lan is finding tracks of Rand. They found his horse that looked like it was been ravaged by wolves. We know it wasn't the wolves now, and it wasn't mastiffs, it was dark hounds. But Rand is on foot outpacing them. He's already running like an Aiel man. So this is, the chase is on, and they're really pushing hard. Now, with all of this, getting and seeing the results of the Taveran nature, Perrin is starting to question, like, but this doesn't make sense. Why are there villages where they go through and old cows was dug out of the ditches, and to the point that calm only came back to the village after 3 people died, with just like old unrest flaring up. Other villages was completely burned down. Houses exploded from a lantern that fell in a barn. And he's sort of questioning Moraine there one night when they stopped, like, how is this even possible? I thought everything was good. Like the creator is good. How is this Taviran playing into evilness? Like things that's bad. And she's like, well, good is good and bad is bad. It is what it is. The pattern doesn't select good or bad, it selects what's around it. So eventually it can influence something that's going to be bad and just make it super, super bad, which is quite harsh for Perrin to sort of accept, I suppose. And then, Lan interrupts them, and they, as they're riding now through. Sorry, I said when they stop now that she was having a chat with him in the saddle, I think. And they are right outside a new town now. This is now, let me stuff this one up, Riemann.
That's the easiest one.
And it's on the bank of Manetherinderel River, and there's no bridge that crosses it. The river's like a mile wide, and he's like, but just be ready for it. Like things have happened here as well. And with that news, Moraine sort of darts off and sets a pace, and they're heading into the village, or almost want to say city, but not quite a city, town. And as they ride into the square of this town, there's a man in a they hurriedly erected sort of frame with a cage, and there's a man sitting in the cage, and this kid's like throwing rocks at the man in the cage, and Perrin sort of looking at this, and anything in a cage already brings in a reaction to him. And Moraine also making sort of a disgruntled grunting at sort of whether it might be with the kids throwing rocks at the man or the fact that there's a live man in a cage suspended off the ground. But yeah, they make their way to the inn, which is Wayland's Forge. And she starts having a chat to the innkeeper, sort of, oh, well, what's been happening here? Now, Melan and Moraine here is going by the aliases, Master Andra and Lady Elise. And the innkeeper is just sort of getting down with why everything's been happening there, all the hunters for the horn that's staying. And they came upon this horde of Aiel, 20 of them, and they were the two lords. What was it? Lord Orban and Lord something else.
Lord not appearing in this story.
Lord Gun or Gan.
Nice joke.
So they faced 20 Aiel with only 10 retainers, and they managed to slay a bunch of them and capture one, and the rest took the dead bodies away as they do. And
Bullshit.
it was like, and Lan sort of listens to this, and he kind of pipes in on that. He comes and listens a little bit closer, and he's like, "You faced 20, and you only lost 6." And met with I, yeah. It's Lan sees and smells the bullshit from a mile.
Lands all over it.
Yeah. And then makes a story which the one lord says, no, well, the white cloaks are off riding, looking for the runaway Aiel from the clash. And Perrin is like, what? There's white cloaks here? He has quite a visceral reaction to it. And,
Rightly so.
Yeah, not a fond man of white cloaks, that Perrin, you know?
Yes, he has a bit of history with them.
He's fucking hounded by them.
Yeah, absolutely. They just don't let him go. So yeah, Moraine sort of like, nah, leave this. I want our rooms. She's had enough of it. They get everyone up into the rooms, and as they head up to the stairs and being shown by the innkeeper the way to their rooms, Perrin can feel the eyes on him. It's like he stops and he turns around and has a look, and he spots a woman standing with the black riding dress, not any lace on her. She's geared for moving, and long black hair, tall, big nose. He's unsure whether she's pretty or not, but she then sort of quickly looks away and gets talking to one of the serving girls. And yeah, that's it. That's the end of that chapter. They are at the forge, Wayland's Forge.
Just a point of order there. Perrin remarks that her nose is almost too big for her face.
Almost too big. He's not sure if she's pretty or ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the only thing that popped up there is obviously Perrin knows now, and he's put the viewing that Min had of him with an ill man in a
A
cage.
caged Aiel. Yeah.
Yeah, he's put that together now, and he's like, "Damn, what's going to happen?" Yeah, it's the next thing he needs to speak to Moraine about, because he's not sure whether he should tell her that this has been said by Min, and Moraine won't probably have any sort of idea what it means anyway. But
No.
Perrin's got his haunches up. He's worried because this is going to be a significant event, as predicted
Yeah.
by Min.
Yeah.
So did you guys look at the map to see where they are?
Not
No.
really, to be honest.
They're halfway to Tyr.
Almost there.
Yeah, halfway. So almost there. Sure. Another
So
month,
28
maybe.
days to get halfway at that stage then.
Yeah. This is where Moraine later says that she has to make a choice between like trying to catch Rand, which they haven't been able to do because of his
Take the
he comes
boat.
from a long line of far runners and good walkers or something like that. So that's where they have to decide whether to take a ship down to Ilion and then a ship from Ilion to Tyr, or to try and catch up with Rand. But yeah, they're halfway. That's a long ass way they've come.
Is this near Lugard? Because he said there was something mentioned like they're on the Lugard road because they're
Lugard
close enough
Road.
to Lugard to be
Yes,
calling it
but
that.
also
Ah,
they're just crossing the Manither Drell,
okay.
which is the
Yeah,
river.
I've got that on
that
my map
flows
now.
down. Yeah. Tyr is also further to the west than I remembered. It's not on the spine of the world. It's like it's a bit closer to Ilion. So where they came from in the mountains, they're about halfway.
Yeah.
Lan and Moraine don't say anything about the Darkhound paw print. I guess there's no reason to.
No, they're a tight-lipped bunch, aren't they? It's not the first time they're not offering up information.
No, that is their modus operandi.
I don't think they've seen it, to be honest.
No, surely Lan would have seen it. If Perrin saw it, Lan saw it.
Yeah.
The bit when he walks into the village, he picks, or into the town, he picks up that smell again, and it sort of immediately makes him aware, and he says it's not was not Netherborn,
Soulless.
Neverborn, it's soulless. Was
And the
that
twisted
referring
ones.
to the twist? Yeah, was that referring to the Darkhounds as well?
Well, he notices a smell that is not Trollocs or Halfmen. It's not the Twisted Ones. It's not a Neverborn. Those are Trollocs and Midral. But he knows it's of the dark, and it made him think of the same thing that he smelled in Jarrah. So there's a direct link between now seeing the paw print in the stone, smelling the sulfur, and linking the scent that he had in that town with what he smelt in Jarrah. What else?
Perrin has again, it's a little bit of his own struggle with sleep in his dreams, and referring to the Hopper dream with the Queen as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that is seeming to be something that's trying to get across to the reader, I suppose, that her dream traveling is working. It's connecting with the right people.
Yes, and also we're getting a lot of the wolf dream, and Perrin's dreams are also significant in some way and reflective of like actual goings on. They're not just dreams in Perrin's head. You can tell that, the wolf dream is something a lot more than that. This could be an error, or maybe I'm misinterpreting this. But Perrin thinks to himself, he's seen 2 Aiel now. But Perrin has seen 5. He saw 3 maidens in the steading
Yeah.
before they travel with the portal stone.
Does he say Aiel man?
He does not. He says 2 Aiel.
Because he's just seen the one that
Then he's wrong.
popped up on the road. The one that popped up in the road when they were traveling with Perrin from the portal stone, or
That's Urian. That's the first one he sees.
first one.
Then he sees 3 maidens in the steading.
But they're not Aiel men.
Well, that's just sexist. So why would he? So he would just completely disregard seeing 3 Aiel women that has never ever seen before, and then when he sees another Aiel man, he thinks, "Ooh, I've seen 2 Aiel men now."
Maybe.
That seems incredibly dismissive.
Well, maybe he doesn't realize what the Maidens of the Spear are.
No, he knew they were veiled with spears.
Is that a book error?
Who knows? Now, I can't remember specifically if he says Aiel men or Aiel. I'm going to look it up. Aiel. Now Perrin knew what was familiar about the man in the cage. He had seen an Aiel once, one of those fierce, nearly legendary denizens of the harsh land called the Waste. The man had looked a good deal like Rand, taller than most, with grey eyes and reddish hair. So he says he had seen an Aiel once.
Well, there's an error then there.
I
Unless he
think
was
so.
hanging out outside the steading and he didn't see the maidens.
No, he was there. But that is super pedantic, which is so weird for me.
Yeah,
So weird for
totally
you.
out of character.
I had laughed out loud at Land's comment when Lord Auburn says about the White Cloaks looking for the Aiel in the hills. They'll ride all over the countryside for days, but I doubt they'll find as much as their own shadows. And Land's response is, I suppose they won't. He knows. And even Lord Auburn at the time is like, I don't know how to take that comment.
Oh, yeah, he's a shit seller.
It's an uncharacteristic sort of like nuanced play on words from, Land, who is basically a walking sword. My final note from that chapter is that Perrin has to have a slow, methodical thinking session about absolutely everything, including one of the final comments in that chapter. Perrin can't decide whether Fail is beautiful or not. Like, you can't just look at someone and be attracted to them. He has to go sit and think about it first.
Come on, man.
Eyes.
Beefy boy's a thinking man. Just let him be.
Beefy boy is a thinky boy. Not so much a feely boy. Right, so then chapter 34 is called A Different Dance. Oh, delectable.
Oh,
The
loving
dance. So anyway, the innkeeper is busy showing them, they're going up the stairs, I assumed. I don't know if they even say they're stairs, but I just imagine them going up some stairs looking for the rooms. And the innkeeper is sort of just prattling on as he shows them to their rooms. But Perrin can't stop thinking about the girl with the black hair, which, I mean, we're all friends here. We've all read the whole series. We can start calling her
Yes.
Fail now. I was sort of like vacillating between the two in my notes, calling the girl with the long hair because she hadn't introduced herself yet and Fail, but I'm just going to call her Fail now. Until the innkeeper mentions something about someone proclaiming the dragon in Gildan. And Moraine's about to enter a room, but she stops dead and she sort of turns around and demands to know if there's another false dragon claiming themselves in Gildan. And with some encouragement from Land, the innkeeper explains, no. It's just like, it's someone sort of like spreading prophecies of the dragon and sort of talking about the return of the dragon and all kinds of stuff. And Lan and everyone sort of immediately nod their heads. They all know who it is. Except Moraine, for some reason. Lan has to say, oh, yes, we're familiar with this gentleman, Massima. You remember him, don't you, Lady Alice? And she's like, yes, Massima. I should have taken care of him or something along those lines, but she's clearly pissed off about it. And when she walks into the room, she actually slams the door behind her. Now, I'm going to pause here quickly because I want to pose a conundrum to you guys. This party of people, so Lan Moraine, Perrin, Loyal, they are chasing Rand as hard as they can, right? And they left the mountains at the same time as the Shinarans, who went to Johanna. So they're charging after Rand, and Rand has made a beeline to this town and further. How has this news of a guy spreading the word of the dragon in Gildan reached this town before the friends?
I'm going to say that they send a crow.
They sent a pigeon. It was meant for Tar Valon, but it wound up in Renner first.
There's no crows in this land.
It's a difficult one to answer because it doesn't make any sense.
No, some traveler from Johanna made it to this town, some merchant.
Faster than these guys?
Well, I'm looking at the map now, like from where they left the mountains to Gildan is pretty close. So they probably arrived in Gildan long before. They've been in Gildan now.
So that
for weeks.
Say they moved a week, they would have had another full 3 weeks there to make a mock. And Massimo's already pretty damn nuts at that time in camp.
He is, but for someone to like be known as the guy talking about the stuff, he would have to be doing it for a little while. And even if they got to Gildan before the party, Joe, the news would still have to travel from Johanna to this town.
Mm.
Well, it is kind of big news. So I mean, anyone preaching the dragon is going to be spoken about. It's not a small thing, I suppose.
Yeah, but look, Rand, Moraine, and this party and all of these guys, they're not traveling by the main road. Rand is through the forest. It's taking much, much longer to
I
travel.
guess.
The guys from the news from Gildan would just go on the road, straight to Lugard.
I'm also looking at the map now. I know that Jarrah was on the border of Amadisia, because they talk about the proximity to the White Cloaks, right? So we know that Jarrah is much further south than Johanna. So maybe the Shanarans exited the Mountains of Mist earlier to go to Johanna than what our party of friends did to get to Jarrah.
Hmm.
And that would have allowed Massima some time to, spread his bullshit around Johanna. And for someone to take it, like you say, Joe, along the road. Because what are they taking? The Lugard Road.
Mm.
Yeah.
So if there's a road going from Johanna all the way to Lugard, and it meets up with the Manetheren Drell maybe further north than what these guys are. I don't know. It just seemed weird to me that like they all left together. The other guys went to Johanna, these guys went south to Jarrah, and then they kept traveling at a notably hard pace. And still, there was time for Massimo to A, establish himself as this raving lunatic, and B, that news to reach here before our friends. Don't know. Maybe some of our listeners can shed some light on the subject.
Perhaps there's a timeline of all of this in that blog that you read or something. Someone's worked this out.
I'm gonna go look it up. Maybe we put a pin in it.
You put a pin in it. You're doing that leg
Billy will
work.
have none of this.
I put my foot in it, is what I did.
Yeah, that's what you did. I'll put my spoon in my honey.
Okay, unpause. So back to our story. The innkeeper remarks to the rest of the guys about how fierce the Lady Elise seems, and Lan says, "Only to those who displease her. Her bite is far worse than her bark." Which again is
Damn.
his Lan sort of like word playing again. Okay, Lan, you got the little poetry side of you coming through again here. But it did make me chuckle. So the innkeeper then immediately just keeps moving and showing loyal Perrin and Lan to their rooms. But Perrin is sort of tuning everything out because he can't stop thinking about Fail and he can't stop thinking about Gaul, who I'm also going to just name now because we all know who it is. So when he gets to his little servant's room, because Lan didn't do anything to convince the innkeeper that Perrin was not a servant, Perrin gets to his little servant's room and he sort of sets out his bow and he unstrings his bow and he sets everything down. But instead of like going straight to bed, despite being ridiculously tired, he sits on a stool to have a good old think. Because that's
little
what
old
Beefy
thinking
Boy
stool.
does. Yes. So he's sitting there thinking when Loyal unexpectedly and excitedly pops his head in to say, "Ooh, my Ogier bed that the innkeeper has is sung wood. It must be more than 1,000 years old. I wouldn't even attempt to sing a piece that big, and I'm sort of like, one of the better or more talented people or Ogier in the world at this sort of thing." Sort of super, super stoked on his sung wood bed. And Perrin just brushes it off completely, totally distracted. Loyal looks crestfallen, but he's like, "Okay, well, do you at least want to come downstairs and come have some supper with me?" And Perrin declines. He needs to sit. He needs to think some more. Like he's got his thinking hat on now, and he can't take it off.
So yeah, I really did like that explanation of the sung wood and the sung bed. Like,
Yes.
it's really for the first time understanding you singing a piece of furniture that grows from the base of a tree or trees.
And
So
it's
all
huge.
just, yeah.
Because it has to fit Loyal. And
Well,
it's a single piece.
Just a single piece of wood that's sung.
Yeah.
It's an awesome concept. I do like that.
It is. I mean, Perrin is totally uninterested. He's more of a metal guy. So Perrin is sitting there pondering why Fail would be looking at him specifically. I've got in brackets here, idiot. And makes the connection between Gaul and, Gaul in the cage and Min's viewing again. And he's sort of trying to think, like, what does all this mean? He's sort of regretting not telling the kids to stop throwing rocks at Gaul, but he figures the parents would have, told him to mind his own business anyway. So eventually, after it's gone fully dark and he's obviously been sitting there for quite a while, he comes to a conclusion and he sort of says to himself, I have to do something, don't I? So without thinking, while he's getting ready, he buckles his axe onto his belt, which we will learn was probably a good idea. So
Yeah.
he sets off down the hall. And as he's passing Moraine's room, he sort of knocks on the door once and he just opens the door and he steps in, expecting to see Lan and Moraine in there, sort of planning their next move as they usually do. But instead, he walks in on Moraine, busy brushing her hair in what seems to be quite a level of undress. So she just sort of pulls her
Question just right
robe
there.
around herself. Yeah.
Did he see her boobies?
I can confirm yes.
I don't think so.
Yes, he did.
What? You think so?
Totally.
What? Did she show the ankles?
That's just probably in a shift or something,
Right.
So anyway, so Moraine sort of pulls her robe around herself and she asks him calmly what he wants. And Perrin is obviously super embarrassed and sort of stammering, but eventually gets out his question, which is this weirdness in this town also Rand's doing? And Moraine says that she doubts it, but she'll know more when Land reports back. She has to make a choice to either try to catch up to Rand over land, which has been impossible thus far, or to go down the river to Ilion and catch a sea ship to Tyr and try and intercept him there. She muses that, at times she thought that he may have learned to actually travel again, capital T, travel, but immediately dismisses that since he would then be able to go straight to Tyr. But, Moraine, obviously you don't know how to travel, no one else does, but what you wouldn't know, Moraine, is that you would actually need to have intimate knowledge of the destination before you can just open a gateway there.
Mm.
Right? I mean, that's what I remember. God, I could be setting
Yeah.
myself up for a terrible callback here, but I seem to recall you need to know
That's
the
what
place
I
you're
recall
going.
as well. Yeah, we need to be able to see the area in your mind or something along those lines.
Yes. Hey, maybe he's seen it in his dreams. Who knows? Maybe that counts. But
Totally.
I think it's just a lack of understanding from Moraine because no one in this age knows how to travel. But I think with skimming, you can go to somewhere that you've not been before. Do you guys remember skimming?
Oh, totally. That's what happens in the Waste. Him and
Yeah.
Asmodean having that skimming race.
Yeah.
I'm just going to nod my head. Yeah, totally remember that.
Totally, yeah.
But also, while she's thinking about, chasing him down, that's when she says he has the blood of long walkers and strong runners in him.
Ah, there it is.
Mm.
Perrin changes the topic to whether Moraine can sense a dark friend because she'd mentioned doing that before, mentioning the girl with the dark hair downstairs that seems to be, taking note of him. And Moraine at that point has a half smile and resumes brushing her hair. And she says to Perrin that you forget that. I'm laughing because my note says you're a good-looking beef boy.
Yeah, I'm thinking the exact same thing.
But I mean, those aren't her words, but that's what she's sort of saying. Like, you forget that you are a handsome young man. So Perrin just sort of after that exchange leaves awkwardly, not telling Moraine about Min's viewing. He had a choice there to sort of tell her about, the fact that Min had a viewing about a caged Aielman. But he shakes himself out of it and he heads out. As he's passing through the common room, there's no sign of Fail, just Lord Auburn telling, obviously grossly exaggerated stories of his own bravery. But out in the street, there doesn't seem to be anyone. Everyone is at the inn listening to the Hunters of the Horn. I think they explained that people are either sitting in, the inn itself, or crowding around outside to hear these stories. So the streets are all but deserted.
Yeah, the fallacies.
Yeah. So as he's walking, he still has the sense that he's being watched. This is obviously Fail is actually watching him, right, from the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
So he walks through the town and he comes to the square where he reaches the gibbet from which the caged Aielman is hanging. Gaul looks awake, but he doesn't seem to be acknowledging Perrin's presence at all. Perrin doesn't smell any fear on him. Has he mentioned smelling fear yet before this? I can't recall a specific instance, but that becomes sort of a feature, like Perrin being able to smell whether someone is afraid or not, and actually translating that later into like whether they're lying or not. Like they push this smell sense to new heights with the ways that Perrin actually applies it. So the way they describe the cage is that it's hanging from a thick rope through a pulley. If you imagine like a gibbet, like a hangman's noose, right? Like it's a bar going up vertically and then a horizontal one from which the cage is hanging. And then on the vertical bar, there are these pegs through which the rope is, around which the rope is then wound. So Perrin walks up to the post and he sort of, he hooks his leg around it somehow that I didn't quite picture properly. I don't quite know how it works, but I guess it's immaterial. But the important thing is that Perrin then pulls on the rope, pulling the cage up higher, sort of, creating some slack around the peg so that he can unwind it. And then hand over hand, he sort of gradually lowers it down to the ground. He walks around to it, and Gaul is now sort of like studying him silently while Perrin is busy here. And he walks around the cage. He's sort of sussing it out. He figures the cage looks like it was hastily made. Perrin, being a blacksmith, obviously has some knowledge about this, and he's looking at the lock and the chain used to sort of to lock the gate. He decides the chain is probably the best place to sort of compromise the integrity of this trap, and he finds the link that seems to be the weakest one, shoves the spike of his axe through there, and with not very much effort for him at all, he actually snaps the chain, pulls the chain out, swings the door open, and he goes, "Well, I opened it, but I'm not going to bloody carry you." And so Gaul climbs out and he goes, "You're strong, Wetlander. It took 3 men to hoist me up there, and now you bring me down. Why?" And Perrin simply responds with, "I don't like seeing people in cages." Always nice to get a reminder of how physically strong Perrin actually is. Gaul climbs out and sort of stretches out, and he seems to be a hand taller than Perrin. And he also, Perrin notes, definitely would have noticed Perrin's eyes, but he says nothing about them. Perrin is actually quite tall as well. He's not as tall as Rand, but he's taller than average. So, if Gaul is a hand taller than him, he is considerably tall, which is, as we know, a common trait among the Aiel. Gaul mentions that he's been in the cage since yesterday, so it'll take a moment for his legs to start working properly. He introduces himself as Gaul of the Imran Sept of the Sharad Aiel, that he's a stone dog, and he says to Perrin, "My water is yours," obviously saying, look, I owe you. And he's addressing Perrin as Wetlander. So Perrin introduces himself and he says that he's a blacksmith, which we also know, and I don't know if you guys remember, is an extremely revered position among the Aiel. They have, deep respect for blacksmiths for some reason. I think they explain it later, but I can't remember exactly why.
Is it because they make weapons?
I mean, probably. They
make
do
spearheads,
and
and they
knives,
revere the spear.
and arrowheads.
And knives, exactly.
So Perrin asks him, "Why do you call me Wetlander?" And Gaul points at the massive river, and he says crossing rivers has nearly unmanned him. And he tells a story of like how he saw a young woman swimming in the river, and he just couldn't believe it. He is, gobsmacked at the amount of water just on this side of the spine of the world. So Perrin says, you're a long way from home. So what are you doing here? And Gaul says that he is looking for he who comes with the dawn. And Perrin immediately connects that with what he heard from Urien and, as we know, the maidens down in the setting. And he just casually says, "Well, I'm looking for him too, but he's not here. He's on his way to Tyr." And Gaul immediately makes the link with the Stone of Tyr falling in their prophecy. So when he who comes with the dawn will be made known to them, the Stone of Tyr will fall and they will leave the threefold land. So everyone is connecting the dots now. The Aiel certainly at multiple points now, or actually not multiple points. This is the first point that they have a direct link to Rand, because Urien and the maidens were looking for him, but I don't think they had any clues. Varen says to Urien, "I have no knowledge of where he is, like talking around the fact. Perrin knows at that time that it is Rand he's looking for, but she sort of says, I've seen no omens to tell me where he is, because at that time Rand was in the Portal Stone Walls. So here we go. The first Aielman to get a real proper clue as to where their prophesied savior is going to be. Parents start saying, look, we better get moving. Someone's going to see us. And just at that moment, they hear someone shout, the savage is loose. And about a dozen white cloaks come running up to them drawing swords. And Gaul, the quote is, as if he had all the time in the world, Gaul veils himself and he says to Perrin, do you like to dance, Perrin O'Bara? And then he runs straight at the white cloaks, unarmed. They're drawing swords coming at. And they are like surprised by it momentarily, and that's all they need, because Gaul just goes, I've got it in capital letters, Gaul goes to work on the white cloaks. He is like kicking swords out of hands and crushing throats with like a stiff hand, and then kicking another guy in the face and breaking an arm with an audible snap. Like he is just going to town. And Perrin notices that it looks like a dance. Gaul dances in the midst of these white cloaks. And while Perrin is astonished about this, he is then also set upon by white cloaks himself, and he has to fight. And he hates every second of it, but he is incredibly effective with his brutal axe. He's like cleaving heads in twain and stuff. It's not pretty for the white cloaks.
There's our next T-shirt: cleaving heads in twain.
Since 954 NE or whatever. But it seems like the fight is finished in moments, and Gaul is sort of just standing. Gaul and Perrin are standing in the midst of all this carnage, with a dozen dead or groaning white cloaks. And Perrin notes that the majority of that was done by Gaul, still unarmed, because as we know, the Aiel don't like swords, so it's not like they picked up a sword or anything. And Perrin is just astonished. So Gaul looks at him and he says, you do not dance the spears badly, Perrin Ibarra. But
that's about as big a compliment as you can get from an Aiel.
To a wetlander, I mean, that is unheard of.
You're not bad.
So Perrin says, I can't believe 12 men fought 20 of you and won. And Gaul just laughs and he explains how he and his one other Aiel friend had grown soft in the wetlands and had sort of stumbled upon Orban and his men because they were the wrong way on the wind from them, or something along those lines. And they had stumbled on them, just the two of them. And and that guy had been killed and Gaul was captured. But how many people did they lose? 10.
They killed 6.
They killed 6 and the rest were injured, quite gravely. And these, Fail says later, these guys had fought before. They're not idiots. They're blowhards, but they can fight. So, Gaul and his buddy accounted for them, almost all of them. But with that, Gaul says to him, may you always find water and shade, Perrin Ibarra, and then just runs off into the night.
There he goes.
Perrin realizes then what this scene would look like to anyone that arrives, because now there's 12 dead and dying white cloaks and just Perrin standing there with a bloody axe. And then he notices, or he catches a glimpse of the girl from before. So Fail has spotted him and she dashes off. So Perrin runs over to where he saw her, but before he can get there, Lan intercepts him and he goes, is this your work, blacksmith? Is there anyone that can connect it to you? And Perrin is like, shit, yeah, there was this girl and she saw him, but please don't hunt her, Lan. I don't want this to turn into the hunt for the girl that saw me. Immediately trusting his instincts to try and protect her. So Lan just instructs him, look, man, go get Loyal, meet me in the stables. We need to GTFO, run. And that's how the chapter ends.
Yes. There he goes, one of God's own prototypes. Is that the quote?
That's the one. High-powered mutant of some kind. Never meant for mass production. Too weird to live, too rare to die. Yeah. Action, 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 action. Not a lot of analyzing to do there, but did you guys have any additional thoughts?
Just the many heads cloven in twine? I can't even repeat what you said.
In twain.
In twain. In twine. Jesus.
mean, Perrin's weapon is brutal, hey? Like, there's no pretty
Yeah.
way of fighting with an axe. You are just hacking at humans and wrecking shop.
The first white cloak he kills is gashes his throat open with the axe, like straight for the neck.
I mean,
Gross.
Just like a
oh,
wolf.
it's very wolfy of him.
Mm.
Yes, yes.
Indeed.
I'm surprised they didn't chop more legs off. Hamstring. Some more guys from the legs.
Maybe he did.
And yeah. Beefy boy can wield the axe and he can stand his
Yes.
own ground. He can dance for himself.
He does not dance the spears badly, old Perrin Ibarra. Love Gaul, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go.
Here we go. We see a lot of him.
Yes.
Poor Loyal. I feel so sorry for that guy. Like, he is so stoked.
get a
He's
break.
such a rad guy. And everyone's just like, oh, fuck off. I got other things to worry about. I'm on my thinking stool. Piss off.
Gets his opportunity. Good bed. Wants to talk
Yeah.
about his sungwood. Just gets shrugged aside.
Now, in the next chapter, he's even got a sungwood chair, like with cushions. And he's just, it's like the first time in months that he's actually found a place where he's got a bed and a chair made
Was it also a
especially for him.
sungwood chair or was it just a
Yes.
specific chair?
No, it wasn't. I don't know if it was an Ogier. It was an Ogier size chair. We'll have to double check
Yes.
that.
I
It
don't
was an
think it was
ogre-sized
sun.
chair and full of pillows, like human-sized pillows,
Yeah.
so there had to be a bunch of them.
Yeah, but we'll get into that now. But
will.
yeah, just poor old Loyal. He's just being dragged along by the tide, you know.
Yeah, just write everything down, Loyal. Shut up and just write it down.
Well, that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
It is. So, Jody, why don't you tell us more about Loyal's chair in Chapter 35, The Falcon?
Oh, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So Lan
Oh,
and
no.
Perrin, there's no Winter Soldier, are back in the inn. They've pushed themselves through the people that are still trying to listen because old, what's his face, Orban, is still sprouting his bullshit, is telling the story again. So the place is packed, but they're walking all nonchalantly. We didn't just murder 12 people coming through the common room. Lan heads straight to Moraine's room. Perrin hears them arguing in the background. And she's like, Perrin did fucking what again? Perrin goes to Loyal. I don't know what they were saying, but that's probably along those lines.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
I just finished combing my hair. Perrin heads to Loyal's room. And this is where I say poor old Loyal. Because he's even got his Ogier chair and he's writing his book
He's
in it. And
so stoked. He's just
so
had
stoked.
a bout of inspiration.
He's taking notes. He's got his shoes off. He is, the picture I have of him is like he's in the zone and he is loving it. And Perrin's just like, Loyal, get back. We're leaving. And he's like, leaving? We only just arrived. Like,
I didn't even sleep in my bed.
no. Goddamn humans.
Shame.
Always freaking out, running
Always
around.
rushing.
Always rushing. Perrin goes back to his room because he only sat on his stool. He's like, literally, didn't light a candle, didn't wash his face. Like, that room is untouched. So he kind of thinks to himself, I knew that I wasn't going to stay. Like, I knew when I walked in and I saw that Ailman, I was going to save him and we'd probably have to flee. So this is preordained kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So they sneak out the back because they're obviously not going to, disappear through the common room to the stables. The stableman there doesn't trust Perrin at all and giving all these orders to saddle all these horses. And then in a scene that is reminiscent of Matt's scene on the boat, that piece of metal flashing past him, this time into the hand of the stableman, just like a dagger flashing past Matt. And there is Lan to save the day. And all he says to him is, saddle them. And the stableman jumps and gets to it. Yeah. Perrin has to explain himself, but this Lan does not. I say shame poor Loyal, but actually Loyal is loving it. when he gets down there, he's like, man, isn't this like old times? Enemies all around, fleeing in the night. Like, he's super stoked.
Danger.
Like, danger all everywhere, like he's loving it. He's loving it.
Yeah.
It's great for his book, and he has to enjoy adventuring now because it's going to make a great story. And Perrin's like, oh, okay, fine. I would rather not be, fleeing for my life every 5 minutes, but as long as you're happy, Loyal. They head for the docks. A lot of these stories are always heading for docks.
Yeah.
And Lan does some late night negotiations. And they got a ride on the Snow Goose, captained by Jaime Adara, or Jaim, if you prefer, depending on where he is from in the world. Um, then they, just as they cast off, in another scene reminiscent of Matt's, a dark-haired woman comes leaping onto the deck, causing all kinds of commotion. But again, coins are exchanged, and negotiations are made, and she is now a passenger. So Fael comes swooping onto the deck, so to speak. She immediately goes to stand next to Perrin. Just all easy as you like. She did see all the killing, apparently, but told no one. And he's kind of surprised by that. He's like, oh, good on you. She has lots of questions and she likes to talk. And Perrin considers throwing her overboard at that point, but gives her a little bit of more leeway. And this is where she talks a little bit about Orban as well and his buddy, the other guy. Nobody remembers who his name is.
Gan,
even though Gan or whatever. So even though he was lying about the Aiel numbers, he's no joke with a sword. And she recounts that story that he did pick a fight with some people, but it was for like 4-on-1, and he handled them. Like he's a competent fighter. So not to be dismissed. I wonder if these guys come back into the story later on, because there is a lot about them. So I'm just wondering if we see them again.
Put a pin in it.
Put a pin in it. So she tells Perrin that she is a hunter for the horn. He thinks it's very funny that a girl is the hunter. He's a very small-minded little moron. But anyway, yes,
Country
Perrin,
bumpkin.
girls can be hunters too. But anyway, and she tells them like Orban and those guys are going to a different part because every hunter's got their idea of where the horn is hidden. And she's like, have you ever heard of Manetherin? And he's like, funny you mentioned that. I have actually heard of this place. But why is she so interested in him? And she's like, well, she's very intrigued by Perrin because she's also smart as hell. Immediately upon seeing them, she figured Moraine was an Aes Sedai. She got a little look under the cloak that she was wearing, saw her face. Obviously, that makes Lan her warder. Loyal, obviously an Ogier. That's obvious. Which makes Perrin look really out of place. Because he's traveling like what seems to be an equal to all these other people when he clearly looks like he should be a servant or some country bumpkin.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those places. She does a little flash with her blades, like a la Tom style, which scares the shit out of the oarsman and causes the whole ship to lurch to one side. So she puts them away. You're like, yeah, you might want to pack those things away. At this point, again, Perrin considers throwing her overboard, but again, resists. So, like I say, she thinks the horn is in Manetherin, and it's kind of like irking to Perrin that she thinks that he's some moron. So he explains to her, like, yes, I know all about Manetherin. So he recounts that story that Moraine told him about the queen being an Aes Sedai and the king was her warder, and blah, 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 to like make himself look super smart. But she's totally unfazed. Maybe on the surface, at least. She's like, yeah, whatever. I knew that too by his little speech. But I'm pretty sure that now she's even more intrigued by him. Like now that she's getting to speak to him, and he seems learned amongst, while looking like he does. This is when she tells him that her name is Mandarb. Lots of lols ensue. She is pissed, but Perrin's like quickly points out, like, look at Lan's horse. Is that horse there? His name is Mandarb. And she's like, okay, I see. She's still not stoked. Find out that her actual name is Zareen. Totally forgotten that completely. I didn't even know she had another name. Never even thought about it. Yeah, totally forgot.
Did you recognize her surname?
Yeah, Bashir, of course. Zareen Bashir. Famous general daddy. So she is, she's noble, of noble blood.
Oh, yes.
We don't, of course, as the reader, know this at this point. We don't know who any Bashir, we haven't met old Davrim yet.
I don't think they've mentioned him.
No, not at all. But anyway, at this point, he's got enough information and she's pried enough out of him. So he bids her good night and leaves. But he's kind of like worried that she'll throw a knife in his back. He feels the back of his neck tingling. Like, this chick with those knives, she's very forward. She's very confident. She's good with those knives. There's a possibility she might just throw knives in my back while I'm walking away. But as he's walking away, she calls out to him and that perhaps she's going to change her name to Fail instead, which in the old tongue means falcon. And this is where Perrin almost blixums down the stairs again. Now, all our listeners know what blixum means.
Yes.
So he skips a step when she says that. So in his mind, he's like, Aielman in a cage? Check. Falcon? Check. Hawk? Still got to check that box. And that's how the chapter ends, with him going, shit, inside.
A great introduction to Fail.
Love her.
I love her. She's really cool, and not
Yeah.
an awful lot else going on in this chapter.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like I said, all these chapters are just very good information. Nothing to
Mm.
Well, there's lots of
sort
action. I mean, literally, like 20 people died. You know.
Yeah,
Yes.
action aplenty, and there's a couple of deaths and that, but
Yeah.
it wasn't as big. Sort of,
It's moving the story along, and
Yeah.
it's not the people in rooms having conversations like in Tower
Yeah.
Time. You know, like shit is happening, and people are traveling and moving, getting on boats, and like, you know, making moves and setting off. It's sort of like the start of these two pretty big journeys that will follow in the next couple chapters, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, Gauls joined the story now, although he's off on his own again.
That's huge.
goal
That's
file.
huge.
Fail has now joined the party. She's now part of the loyal Perrin.
And Tom's back,
Lan
man.
And Tom. Shit,
And Tom
Tom's
is
back.
back.
Yeah, what are you talking about, Billy? What's happened here?
It's like this good action, good story, but
Yeah.
you can't really unpack the story. It's not like did they really move to that town? Was that town
Yes.
really there?
Yeah.
That actually is relevant later on. Does what is happening around me actually exist?
I have taken note of like how often Perrin's smell sense is being mentioned now. Like throughout these chapters, it is mentioned a lot. Perrin
Yeah.
smells old blood on Gore. He smells
Food when they go into the inn.
food when they go into the inn. Does he smell Fail's like perfume, like lavender or whatever it is? Like you can smell. They're constantly bringing it up, which is great because the more they lean into Perrin's wolfishness, the more I enjoy it. And just again, that Perrin still can't decide if Fail's nose fits her face or not. Like,
Yes.
just decide.
We
dude.
get it.
It does.
She has a funny nose.
Yeah, just love her character, and I'm glad that she's in the story now. And she's
Yeah.
a great foil for Perrin. You know, like she challenges him all the time, and later becomes like, obviously, his driving motivation to do some pretty incredible stuff. Like Perrin goes full berserker mode for Fail. I mean, doesn't he lead that assault on that one Shido city where the Shido have taken over a whole city, and he leads an army against it to go get her out?
Yes,
Mhm.
he does. And there's the whole chopping off of hands and feet scenario
yeah.
later on.
Yeah,
She becomes his motivation for
Mm.
virtually everything. I also thought it was quite interesting. I didn't know this, that every queen of Manetheren was an Aes Sedai, and that the king is her warder.
Mm.
That's cool.
I mean, if he knows that story, then we should know that story too. But I don't recall that being a thing.
It must be something that was off book between me and Monray.
Maybe. Yeah.
Or maybe we just forgot. I think that's more likely.
I mean, that's very likely.
We recorded a 3-hour podcast on it and then instantaneously forgot it.
That's why we record it, so we don't have to retain it.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys this question. Have you remembered to choose a favorite moment?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Jody.
Long pause
Without
from
much
Jody.
fanfare.
Okay, so Willem, why don't you tell us what your favorite moment was?
My favorite moment is Frankie fucking Four Fingers having dice fever in the inns and taking what was his 6 silver marks to 2 purses of gold with some overflow.
Yeah.
So
He even left some in one of the inns and just left
Yeah,
it.
it's like-
Like,
Yes.
I don't even have space to carry this shit anymore.
He's been throwing silver somethings at the. It's just not worth carrying. Like let the
Yes,
waitresses
at the
keep it,
barmaids and
like,
stuff for their eyes.
for their
But he's
eyes.
also that I almost said that hand, but that dice game where he leaves the money on the table is after he had rolled the king for a 6th time. So you can imagine, like, if it was riding and the bets were building after every toss, like there would have been a fat stack of cash that he left on the table there.
Yeah, the pot would have been big, man.
Mm.
Yo.
And Matt's luck manifesting like this means an awful lot of. It's a cool device for an awful lot of stuff that happens later in the story. Like Matt finds his way in. I think it's in the land of the Aelfin or the Eelfin. Also using his luck, like he spins around in circles and stops at random, and then just follows that. Like he finds these really cool, like practical applications for using his luck, even like you mentioned earlier when he rolls all the like the dark one's eyes or whatever, when it's all the single pips, something is about to happen. And Jody, you were thinking like maybe it was him just losing his luck, but if he was losing his luck, it wouldn't have landed on that the whole time. So his
Yeah.
luck is like trying to tell him something bad is coming. So this is really cool. And I mean, later he gets that thing which has not happened here yet, where he actually hears the dice rolling in his head before like a big decision or like a turning point or like a fork in the road. Like he can hear the dice rattling in his head. It's just a really cool device unique to Matt that sets him apart from everyone else and makes him super rad.
The best.
How about you, Joe? What was your favorite moment?
Let me preface this with there are lots of awesome moments, but for that have bad consequences. Like there's lots of kick-ass moments that Matt is really good at and Perrin is really good at, like fighting with Gaul and killing all those dudes without any sweat. But it's hectic. I don't want to say it's nice. It's not nice. So I'm going to go with Matt and his inhaling of 3 chickens within the space of 2 minutes. That's a scene I've remembered my whole life, and I'm glad that I saw it again or read it again in these chapters. And I thought it was very cool that when like you're talking for like 5 minutes, you look down and these just 3 chickens are gone. I thought that was cool.
That is great. Jody, that is very, very responsible and humane of you. And it's going to make my favorite moment and my honorable mention sound like a complete psychopath, because my favorite moment was Perrin freeing Gaul and dominating the White Cloaks, because I hate them. And just the fact that Perrin was able to, like lower the cage down by himself, where it took 3 men to hoist it up in the first place. And the fact that Gaul is in the scene now and then also afterwards acknowledges that Perrin dances well. And then my honorable mention is both of Matt's other fights. So like killing the Grey Man and the other guys on the boat. Like, so all the murder in this stretch of chapters was my favorite bit. Does
Sweet.
that say something about me?
Yes, a lot. I'll give you the number for a specialist, someone you could talk to.
I do not shy away from fictional violence.
I suppose it is all fictional,
I embrace
but
it.
yeah, I'm just really getting invested in these people, and like when after Matt kills all those people, he's not in a good mental space. Perrin during the fight is like, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. And then afterwards for me to go, that was awesome. And I can hear Perrin going, no, it wasn't.
Yes. No, it is true. And I mean, I am also taking more note of that this time around, but maybe it's just my residual teenager from the first read that is going, how cool was this? Hey, remember this?
That's
No,
true.
it's
Things change.
totally cool. Yeah, I think they're all cool scenes. Just my favorite moments. I feel bad about it.
So, to our listeners, tell us what your favorite moments were. And you can do so by tweeting us at Blood and Ash Pod, or finding us on Facebook at Blood and Ashes Podcast, or going to our website, which is just bloodandashespodcast.com, leaving a comment there, which should make its way to my inbox. We're really eager to hear from you guys. We love having everyone else take part in the conversation. So please don't hesitate to let us know what you think. Tell your friends about the podcast. This is something I've been saying lately, but I'm really trying to get the word out there. If there's anyone out there that is, trying to chew your ear off about the Wheel of Time, saying the same thing to you over and over, much like I've done with Villy and Jody over the years, tell them to listen to the podcast and they can chew our ears off. And yeah, send us corrections, opinions, favorite moments, anything at all, any kind of feedback. We are eager to hear from you. On our next episode, we will be covering chapters 36 through 41. We're getting close to the pointy end here, boys. Chapter 36 is called Daughter of the Night, and chapter 41 is A Hunter's Oath. Now, that first name sort of hints at who could be in there, but A Hunter's Oath, don't know necessarily. It's not giving away an awful lot. I can't remember seeing anything in the other chapter names. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, what about it?
Spoilers. Well, she took the oath for the Hunters of the Horn. There was a comment in her thing as well. When Perrin asked her, like, they let women become hunters, and she was like, the square was so packed when people took the oath, a 6-year-old could have taken the oath and no one would have noticed. So, oaths were taken.
We know that now already. Right. So what in chapter 41, like what about that oath is going to make itself known? Yeah, excited. I mean, I'll get in touch with you guys about how we're going to run the last couple of episodes, because unfortunately it does not fall neatly into 6-chapter breakdowns. So we might have some interesting length episodes, either short or long, coming up. But we will let you guys know how that goes. Obviously, just keep listening to the podcast, and we'll let you know which chapters we will cover in the next episode. And with that long-winded explanation, I will let everyone carry on with their lives and get out of their ears and say thanks again for listening. And I will see you guys and everyone else next time.
Goodbye, people. Have a lovely evening.
Yes. Goodbye. Have a lovely afternoon.